by, it's very likely that those same rules will be applied, at the aunt's house or at the uncle's house or at the grandmother's house and even friend's house, which is not necessarily the case in the US because, as you know, the US is an individualistic society, even ruggedly individual. And so people nowadays tend to kind of just mind their own business. They raise their children the way they see fit. And that weakens, in my opinion, that weakens the power and the strength of the parents and of the family unit in general in our community.
Yes, so when when a nation is about to die, the children die first. That's another saying in Swahili
Mm,
too. Uh, and last time I was in Washington D.C. Around before Corona, it was around maybe 9 in the morning, and I saw a lot of kids on the age of 12 banging some kind of plastic things at bus stop. You know how they bang like play music. And when I
mm-hmm.
was trying to talk to them, just saying hi, they start talk to me, saying bad words that I cannot repeat on this panel discussion, which is actually a nature of most of kids in the U.S. By the way, I'm talking about in Washington D.C., where I have lived, because I know exactly what I'm talking about in that area. I don't know if it's the same case in every state in the U.S., but kids were talk saying bad words, very very like unseen words, talking to me by the way, and I'm already older than them, which is it should not happen if it was here in Ethiopia, for instance. But kids were saying really really bad words like F words and so on. And do you see the same language when it comes to kids in Cameroon?
Um, mm, well, let me be fair about that. Kids obviously are exposed, to almost everything, and a lot of it is really adult and mature concepts. But I definitely think that kids here think twice about using, inappropriate or bad language around adults. It can happen, but they know that there's going to be a consequence, and it will be so frowned upon that the benefits definitely do not outweigh you know the choice to use profanity, especially in the presence of your elders. So I would say a little bit less. I would say a little bit less here. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not something that you see, and if you hear about it, there's usually such a severe sanction, that it causes enough fear in other children to not do that, to not go down that road, because they know that the consequences will be bad.
Talking about the consequences, people who are in the US, especially our guests, what is the consequences? How that can impact a kid who's saying bad words or who is acting or behaving in a bad way? What is the sanctions outside of the family? What is the community can do, or what is the consequence outside of the mother and father, for instance?
Well, outside of the mother and father, if this is just something that's playing out in public, on the street or in a public place, for example, I mean, you get looks, and then people will openly speak to those children and reprimand them and remind them that, the choice of wording is inappropriate and out of line, and that they should reflect on, the values that their parents have instilled in them, and that totally goes against the upbringing that they probably have received. So people don't hesitate to chime in and parent on the spot, even if that isn't, biologically their child. I guess a bit like how things used to be in our communities back in the 50s and 60s, from what I've heard my parents say, that, in a neighborhood, if you got out of line, your neighbors were perfectly uh, in line with disciplining or reprimanding children in the neighborhood. Now a little less, because that could turn into a situation that would be very dangerous. So people just tend to mind their business, and they don't really, step up to the plate and put that child in his or her place, just for fear of, a dramatic conflict spiraling out of control. So, um, yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thank you so much. Now, I think let me continue with this. I will come back to the idea of education in general, going to school and coming home and what knowledge someone acquire from education. But for as I think a lot of people in the U.S. again will agree with me that there is misuse of drugs with kids in U.S. This one, a lot of people in the US will agree with me, especially when it comes to weed in what you call high school, maybe even less in high school. A lot of students will possibly consume or will smoke weed in those areas. It's the same case in Cameroon that kids are exposed to weed or any other drugs or alcohol in primary school.
Hmm.
Do you have that in Cameroon?
I've heard that, and this is so rare. These cases are so rare. I don't know if it's because I live in a bubble and my kids just don't want to be honest with me. But I mean, even from other parents, it's so rare, because it's such a huge infraction, and just the prevalence and availability of drugs here is low. Is very low. Um, but yeah, I'm sure there are some students who partake, but it is nowhere near the problem or the levels of epidemic that we see in the U.S. At all, at all. Infinitely smaller than what face in terms of kids being exposed to drugs. Now, alcohol, that's a different story. That's a different story. Children here can very easily obtain alcohol, and it just happens to be one of Cameroon's favorite pastimes. I mean, the national brewery is like the number one business in Cameroon. So, I mean, that gives you an idea as to, how spectacular the alcohol situation is in Cameroon. But hard drugs, um, a little less. Nicotine, yes. But again, infinitely small compared to what you would see happening in the US.
Yes, actually, thank you for that. The first drinking alcohol in Africa is in Ivory Coast, and the second one is actually Cameroon. Third one is South Africa, and so on. Yeah, I know
Mhm.
definitely that Cameroonians are really, really beer consumer people in the morning and night, and they really drink beer. So and in the US is I believe is the law that people are under the age of 18 they can't drink alcohol. But here in Africa, you get out from work, you buy alcohol, you give to your 2 years old a cup, that is something I saw is not only in Cameroon, everywhere in Africa. So parents will give alcohol
Mhm.
to little kids. It's not that kids actually have to go there and found it. Like in US, and then drinking when they're hiding is just parents just give to their kids alcohol, like how you give them the kids juice. Now move on to thank you
Wow.
for that. I believe the issue of drugs. I don't think there's any country in Africa where you will have a problem with drugs in with your children, especially when they are going to school, like in the U.S. as I saw it. Now back to the education. we all know that is, I don't know where it came from, but it's truth. Even here in Ethiopia, when someone come and present the degree from US, it doesn't matter if it's a school like small school, maybe in your town, the college where you grew up in, is you say from Rhode Island,
Well, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. So even if it's like the college that no one knows about the name in Wisconsin, or university there, I don't know if there is any college that nobody knows about. But if someone came with the degree from Wisconsin and somewhere in the town, say like I have a bachelor degree in this and this from Wisconsin, as long as it has United States name on it, people will value that degree and will believe that the degree is higher than the degree you may have in Yaoundé or in Cameroon or any other place in Africa. It doesn't matter where. So where do you think that mindset came from? Because it's the same mindset even here in Ethiopia as well and everywhere in Africa. The idea that the degree came from China, degree came from France or British or US or Moscow is better than the degree came from anywhere here in Africa. Where that mindset came from, do you know?
Right, right. I understand exactly what you're asking. I think a lot of it has to do with PR, the way that the US markets its universities and education system. Um, I think that African universities would do well to take the same approach and showcase what they can do, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You have some brilliant students here, really, really high performing students that rival students that graduate from Ivy League universities in the United States. But if those um, levels of performance and if those students aren't being pushed or promoted, in the world market, then no one will know. The US has its own agenda, to rank their top universities as being the best in the entire world. And so, I mean, you can't really fault them for doing that, but I think it's incumbent upon African universities too, who are really, doing extraordinary work in particular fields, to start marketing themselves, as such, as world-class universities, because I think even in, Singapore is starting to market itself, and there are some Chinese universities that market themselves. There's no reason why Cameroonian universities who are doing well shouldn't be marketing themselves. And again, this is one of those things. No one will do it for us. There is no one on the planet who has the interest of, Africa, Black Americans, the Black nation at heart more than we should. So I wouldn't even ask that they would do it differently, because it's in their best interest to do so. But we do have good universities, and if I could just expound on that point, my oldest daughter is in her 5th year of medical school, and just last month she was able to perform an arm surgery, which was really surprising to me, because I thought, well, shouldn't you be an actual doctor before you get to perform surgery? But one, there is a need, and so in that particular domain, they really do help and encourage students to do the practical applications of some of the things that they're learning, and being able to treat infectious diseases, which is, for example, something that she wouldn't be able to do in the US, because there really isn't an issue with infectious diseases. So these are things that African universities should be promoting and using as tools to recruit top talent all over the continent, which could potentially reverse the brain drain. I mean, if there are more doctors from Ghana practicing in the US than in Ghana, Well, that's something that needs to be, analyzed and corrected.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, definitely. That is actually the most of problem we have. Our people who are studying in Africa, it's so difficult for them to have a job, and
Hmm.
people who are studying outside of Africa are coming in Africa and work and have all the jobs, the high jobs. But when you evaluate the knowledge, the understanding, the practical ability, you found out that people who actually study outside of US, no, inside of on a board, especially in European countries, they have less capacity of operating. Oh, this can be found. It's not something. It's not rocket and science here. It is true that if you look, people who are doing job in, especially U.S. in IT department, they all study in India. So you can see that honestly, in the U.S. they are not producing good employees on IT, or if it's not India, it's gonna be in Nigeria. If you look, people who are doing more medical field in US, you're gonna find out they actually did not study from US. Whereas we are hiring people from US or Europe and other countries who actually not, even though we are hiring them and giving them the top positions, they don't have a capacity of operating in good manner as we may think. The only thing they may have is the name, the degree of the name that came from Western countries. And as you can remember, the scandal of American universities, which was, I believe, 2 years ago or last year, where they found out that actually most of schools in the US they have been operated under rather scandals and bride and briberies going on, which I was thinking maybe that is only happening in Africa, but actually eventually it's coming up. We found out it's happening in most of big universities in the US. So yes, I think our people, our universities, teachers, and leaders, they need to wake up, because we are producing good teachers, we are producing good employees,
Hmm.
but they are not accepted on market, especially in the international level. So I think we need to change that. And it is true. There is no one can debate on this that Africans are everywhere working. People who study here in Africa are everywhere working and doing very, very good job actually in almost in every field, in science, in medical, in engineering, in technology, in history, in teachings, in whether it is a political science. So that means these countries in Africa are producing, actually they are having good education system where people study and learn things that helps them to go abroad and be able to work. That's the truth. Stefan, it seems like you want to talk, is it? Okay, all right. So now back to the
Continue. I'm listening. I'm
okay,
listening.
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought I saw. I thought you were talking. You're gonna talk now. Back to
No.
the process of education and the cost of education. How do you see? You already said that it's very good in Cameroon. That your daughter, she's doing arm operation, which is actually a doctor job. In the Western countries, especially the US, that will definitely be far, far for her to actually reach to do operation on someone's arm, unless she's already in doctor way. Now, so how do you
Right.
see the cost of education in terms of money?
The cost,
Yes.
um, it depends on what kind of education you want to offer to your children. So, imagine a family coming to Cameroon and they have to make a choice of school for a child or their children. Here you have traditional American, which is the kind of school structure that we're used to in the United States. You have French, you have Pan-African, and you have local. I haven't ever seen a Montessori school, so let's just consider we have those four options. Now, an American school, excuse me, a traditional American school can cost as much as 15,000 USD per child from K-5. So if you have 4 children, multiply that times 4, that's 60,000 USD, okay? And then you have the Pan-African schools, which is gonna be roughly around 5,000 USD per child. Now, but you're gonna get an African-centered education, okay? And then you have the local schools, which are local, excuse me, but private. And so those run you around $600 per child. Now, the difference between them is that the physical plants are going to be different. So obviously at a school that is charging 15,000 USD per person, or something close to that, you're going to have the infrastructure that makes you feel comfortable. You know, tennis court, swimming pool, gymnasium, you know, air-conditioned classrooms, very didactic classrooms, and curriculum that you feel comfortable with. Moving on to the African-centered education, you're going to have something similar to that, but not as elaborate as the traditional American. Now, in the local schools, you have a very decent structure. You definitely won't be having a swimming pool, tennis courts, or basketball courts, or things of that nature. But you know, you have large areas where kids can have recreation. They can play, they can play football, they can play soccer, jump rope, etc. The classes are not air conditioned. The cafeteria is going to be an open air setting, and you pay for books in addition to the tuition. But the moral education that you receive from local schools here, I believe, is the most compelling reason to keep our children there. You know, because they do instill cultural pride and leadership, and also a strong academic program. And so for my husband and I, we felt that that would be the best choice for our children. Because for everything else, you know, those are things that we will teach at home, since home is really the first school. You know, mom and dad are the first teachers, and we are always partners in education with the schools that our students or our children attend. And so whatever it costs is a worthwhile goal. It really is. And we're satisfied with the education and the academic curriculum that they're being exposed to. And yeah, we're satisfied with it. The only drawback, I think, is not enough activities that actually make students create knowledge. So what I mean by that is, in the local schools, a lot of emphasis is placed on, you know, some of the lower order thinking skills, recall, memory, rote learning. You don't have as much of the opportunities to create knowledge through, you know, different projects that you might do, you know, excursions that kind of link the theory that you're being taught in school with the practice of it in real life. So like, students rarely even get to, you know, visit corporations or, you know, factories or, you know, other areas in the community that impact, you know, our daily lives. So as a result, students graduate, and sometimes with very high marks, but when it comes time to actually apply or be high performing in some of these businesses and institutions, there's a delta, you know, there is a gap, because they didn't have the opportunity to actually apply what they learned. And so then you have to kind of go back and retrain, and it's cumbersome, and I think could definitely use some revising there.
Wow, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that's very good. Now, I think I believe it may be a false statement, but it is. I have heard many times that the president of Russia, Putin, said that um, in Africa, people go to study on board outside of Africa, and when they have education, they come to Africa to lead. And when they are sick, they go to get treated outside of Africa. When they want to take vacation, they go to outside of Africa. You can imagine where I'm talking about leaders. And if they want to watch football, they go to somewhere. If they are sick, they go somewhere. If they want to eat a good dinner or lunch, they go somewhere outside of Africa. And
Hmm.
when they are die, then they come home to be buried, or they come home for funeral in Africa. And then, by the way, we're not sure if this statement is true, but he said that
Right.
the allegation say that he say Africa is a symmetry. That's the only thing
Right.
like we provide for Africa. And a friend of mine, I don't know if you ever hear about him. His name is Osman Taure. He's a young guy from Gambia. He was offered with a lot of scholarships to go to study in Canada, in France, in England, in the US, in China, but he chose to go to study in Rwanda. And people were criticizing him so hard that why will you go to Africa in Rwanda to study there? And he said that if
Mhm.
I am intended to develop Africa, I need to study in Africa. So do you see that in a sense that the reason why maybe our education is not being improved is because our leaders' children are not actually studying in our schools in Africa, because like around 90% of our leaders, even when it comes to even the pastor, when the pastor or bishop of the church, when he get little money, he will run away, he will take his kids or children to go to study abroad. So do you think that's the reason why our education system is not being marketed as it's supposed to, because maybe our leaders and our children has not studied in Africa at all?
I do, Imani. I completely agree with what you're saying there. I mean, if everyone sends their children abroad, to study, then the school system here will be forever weakened and depleted. And that has been the trend, I think, for the last 50 years, especially for families who can afford to send their children to Europe or to Canada or to the US. They send those kids to those countries without exception and with such a sense of pride. And it's wonderful if they're able to obtain degrees and certifications and all the credentialism in the world. But if they're not taught to bring that new knowledge back to Africa to develop it, it is an epic failure. And that's what we're seeing. And so, a lot of the complaint is, well, I have a medical degree. I'm going to go work in the US or some other country because the conditions are better. And I understand that the conditions are better, but you improve the conditions also, when you hear if there's a critical mass of medical doctors or engineers or choose some other field standing on one issue at the same time around the need to raise the standards, then at some point those standards will be raised. But as long as people are, continuing on this exodus, with no solution to it, then things will never change. And that talent this brain drain will continue to enrich other countries, and their intellectual capacity will improve while Africa's it degrades.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So
This point is actually not far from colonization. I remember this happened in many countries in Africa when Europeans come to invade Africa and colonize us. The first thing they did, they took some members of our families and took them to educate them or to brainwash them, I can say, in Western countries like France, like British, like Germany, Italy, So they took those people, and by the time those people came back, they were actually changed. They were different beasts. And those people who came back, they start to disrespect our languages, our indigenous languages. If you speak the local language, you will count to be uncivilized. They start to disrespect our culture. They start to disrespect how we used to operate. Like I remember when I was little, our grandparents told us that in order to be the city or the town judge, there was some values that they were looking, like, do you have one wife? Do you ever take care of your wife? Do you have a good family? Your children are good, Do you do you have integrity? Those values was shifted when people who went to study in Western came home. The idea of choosing you to be the judge of the town based on your really personality was shifted to based on how much education you have, based on how much French or English you can speak, or Portuguese, or whatever it is the language you can speak. And then we end
right.
up, yes, we end up to lose actually the dignity and the respect of our people, because now we have people who are judging or who are holding political positions or leadership positions without even a sense of integrity at all. And at the end, we have, it's almost like colonization in a way, where what used to be good is no longer good. Like people who used to be in those leadership positions were people who had like a family who will take care of their wives, who will take care of their children, who will take care of the community, like people who are counted on that sense. And we get now people who are actually off, just hold on for a second. People who are off with just from nowhere, they are just in leadership positions. So do you see education to be part of colonization? Do you see the reason why African countries are suffering? It may has a lot to do with education not being addressed, maybe being brainwashed, and then that's why you see this situation, or you see it a different way.
Imani, I do see it that way. I think it is a major brainwash. I mean, because in order for it to make sense, then Africa would have to be at the center of this educational experience. It would have to be the reference point. But if the reference point is still France or England, then that undermines cultural pride, pride of self, pride of community. It takes away your affinity for the culture and the traditions and the customs and the rituals that are associated with indigenous languages. And so with that, we have to ask, well, this educational system, who designed it? Why was it designed that way? What were the expected outcomes? And are those outcomes in alignment with restoring Black people to their original greatness? and elevating us to a level of respectability and competitiveness? If the answer is no, then we need to look at the education system and, take away all of those things that are a disservice. So I do believe that the education system here is heavily colonial, and that's because in the hearts and minds of, many people in the Black nation, anything that is not African is inherently better. So those are some things that we have to work on collectively. Blacks in the U.S., Africans on the continent. We have to change that and make a complete paradigm shift, because it affects everything we do, the intentions behind what we do, how we're raising our children. I know that my husband and I, we want our children to take stock of Cameroon right now. Look outside your window. If you don't like what you see, change it. No one is going to come do it in your place. You need to be accountable for the future of Africa. We all do. So I'm, just so excited and so glad to be having this conversation with you, because there aren't many people that I can have this conversation with. So I appreciate it. Hey, brother Eugene.
Hey there, Sister Charmin. Welcome back to the New African Network.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. It's such a blessing to have you back in our presence again. And Brother Amani and I had been talking earlier last week about getting a few people who have been on the show in the past to come back on to share a little dialogue about some of the things of interest, major interest to Black people. And of course, with the continuing to energize the Pan-African movement, and to also expand our intellectual experiences with our brothers and sisters on the continent, bridging the gap. And that is certainly what we're here to do. And shout out to our brothers and sisters in Cameroon, Yolanda, and you're located in Douala, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I'm looking forward to coming home to Cameroon at some point in time myself, and to definitely to be able to share my knowledge as well as monetary blessings to help move the agenda forward of what we need to set for our future, for our children, both here in the United States and abroad there on the mother continent. So yes, inshallah. Thank you, sister, for taking the time out your busy evening to share your experiences with us.
Thank you. It really is my pleasure. And I'm just congratulate you again. I think you have one of the most powerful networks out there right now. You guys have such rich content. It's so meaningful and it's just so timely and important. I pray that you continue to share the information that you do, because it really is it's helpful and it's also uplifting.
That's what's up, sister. We have to help uplift each other, and brothers and sisters, Black men, Black women, African man, the African woman have to be united to secure our future. And so those are some of the things that we have at the top of our list as a part of the New African Network. Politics, economics is where we should definitely make our major focus on education, making sure that our children understand the plight of this whole movement. This is certainly a different movement from what our parents have experienced in the 60s and the 70s. We're a new breed leader generation. And of course, we're forging out a new direction for ourselves. And as we continue the betterment of ourselves, we're able to make sure that our children's future are secured. So tell us a little bit about the children who are in the what do you call it, adoption, who may be disenfranchised without parents. what do you call those places where they go to stay at? Like children who do not have parents. I can't call it right off the top of my head. But anyway,
Orphanages,
say that again, Brother Jerome.
orphanages, an orphanage.
Orphanages. That's correct. That's correct. That's the right term for it. Yeah, exactly. How the orphanages are, how are they dealing with the COVID epidemic? And I know this is a time where people who don't have children look to the orphanages to adopt children. How is that faring out for children in Cameroon who are in the orphanages? Can you share that information with us if you have that?
I don't
Did she
think.
drop off?
Let me see if I can find her on. I don't see her online.
Did she drop off?
Possibly. Yeah, I don't see her online. Yeah, but yeah. So actually, let me talk about that one here in Ethiopia because I have a friend of mine who
Okay, yeah,
actually.
of course, of course.
Yeah, I
All
think.
right, yeah, share that information with us, Brother Money, about the orphanage.
Yes, I have a friend of mine. His name is Tafera. I actually met him at a Ethiopian embassy in Washington D.C. And he's doing same job of taking care of children on the street. By the way, I found out Ethiopia has many people on street compared to any maybe other country I have so in Africa. I think Ethiopia may be linking on top of people who has on top among the top countries, right? So a lot of people on the street, women and children who are actually on the street due to maybe some issues. Who knows? But I found so many people in Ethiopia are on the street. So I think I can talk about that. Honestly, outside of Rwanda, which I know for sure that in Rwanda you cannot be on the street if you are a kid. They're gonna take you to the place where they're gonna have to put you in family, and once they put you in family, family will take care of you. That is in Rwanda. And if it's someone who is begging, they're gonna take you out there and teach you something you can do to take care of yourself or take care of family. They're gonna teach you how to sew or to stitch stuff. That is in Rwanda. Here in Ethiopia, it's not the same case. Because so many people are begging on street in Ethiopia, and so a friend of mine is doing what he call adoption, of long distance adoption and local adoption as well. He also helping kids to take them to a shelter place where they can stay and teach them and then send them out to be able to live like everyone. Yeah, so when it comes to corona, here I don't have a lot of statistics about corona, not only in orphanage and other places. Also, I don't really have much information, but I know a friend of mine, he's doing the same job, which I actually told him to not give our children for adoption to other countries, especially like Europe and America, because we know that this idea of raising kids, men raising kids, is just something that's going on in Western countries, where two men will marry or two women will marry and want to raise a kids. It's difficult to raise a kids with basic need if kids is raised by two mother who are, one is called husband, another one wife. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's what I can possibly say about the adoption. But for sure, we have many kids in Addis Ababa who need to be taken care of. There is no question about it. They are begging everywhere, and they are not in good shape. Actually, if there's anything we can do, we should look towards to see how we can help these kids who are actual victim of many different issues. There is any other question? Oh, she's back online. I think I saw her back in. Are you there, our special guest?
Hi, Imani, I'm back.
Okay, yeah, so we lost you. I don't know if you hear the question Brother Eugene was asking about.
No, I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Brother Eugene, can you
Okay,
repeat the
yeah, sure,
question?
sister. Yeah, sure. We know that education has been very challenging for African people everywhere. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I wanted to know about the orphanages in Cameroon, how are they faring out with both education as well as the COVID epidemic? Usually, people are in the adoption mode at some point in time. Uh, I just wanted to kind of get a little feel of how the children are faring out in Cameroon with all of this wild stuff going on.
Surprisingly, the numbers, I'm just gonna talk about COVID, right, in general, and how children have been impacted by it. But first of all, they're back in school, so they wear masks. I don't think they've taken measures to lessen the number of students in classrooms. So it's kind of, business as usual. As far as orphanages go, I'm not really familiar with, how things are working there. I know in general, though, orphanages can always use resources, tons of resources. They're always, short of whatever it is that they need to help take care of the children. But the numbers for COVID really haven't moved much. So, I mean, it's largely less than 1,000 cases that have been reported. And, we're pretty close to some people in the medical corps who have up to date information on what's happening with COVID. And I think maybe a reason for that is because people have taken to, local herbs and indigenous products that are safe and that they consume on a regular basis to strengthen their immune system. So I think that's one reason why Cameroonians have been preserved by they've just gone back to the natural way of doing things, and apparently it is really working because there is even I guess an overstock of some medicine that have been ordered to help fight COVID. So luckily for us, we're just kind of moving about, and people. It's still, of course, important to wash your hands, wear masks, and social distance when you can, and then to not, be in crowds or go places when it's not necessary. But people do move about. I think people are back in the office, working as much as they can there. So um, kids have been preserved from it, and thank goodness, because if we had to be taking care of a bunch of sick children, that would just be a tragedy in and of itself.
Right. So, what is the discussion that Cameroonians may be having around the vaccination issue? Is that some discussion that you guys have that's kind of been on the table for Cameroonians about whether it's safe to take the vaccination or not?
I think the vote is still out on that for the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there just isn't a high prevalence of cases of coronavirus, but obviously it's going to come this way, and there will be a time when it will be decided: is it mandatory, is it not mandatory, how much leeway do we have, and whether or not we take it. But for the moment, it's not a high priority discussion. It is a discussion, but not high priority. And so I don't think there's anything definitive at this moment in terms of if it will be mandatory or when it will be available.
Thank you, sister. And one other question I have for you. How is the political environment in Cameroon now? Have things sort of subsided with the xenophobia situation that has been taking place in Cameroon for the last few years? French speaking, English speaking situation, has that tended to curb itself because of COVID? And how's that working out for our brothers and sisters on the continent right now?
Well, actually, there was an event, a very unfortunate event that took place in the Southwest region, which involved murder of school students, random, wanton, just completely senseless and heartbreaking. And with no sense of logic at all or reasoning. I mean, just out of nowhere. And so that really rocked the community a couple of weeks ago. And people are on edge. I mean, me as a parent, it made me think about what is the possibility of that happening to one of my children while they're sitting in school. So, we were kind of in a moment of peace and calmness, but that incident just really just raised everyone's, tension and got us to asking questions about like, when is this going to come to an end? Because situations like that, just kind of create fear and anxiety all over. And when people are fearful and they're scared, they're less careful and things can pop off. So my advice to my kids is just be aware of your surroundings. This is not the time to go on adventures, to be really visiting. Go to school, come home. I'd like to know your whereabouts at all times. And even for the adult children too, to just be careful. And so also we have an overseas advisory council that gives briefings on security updates in Cameroon and in the region. And, that's obviously a topic and cause for concern. So, we share ideas and exchange information in that network to keep ourselves apprised of how to best secure ourselves, property, businesses, and our family. So we're not out of the woods yet with the Anglophone crisis, because that was, I think, a part of it. So, it's high time that people come back to the table with some potential solutions to the problem and to restore, unity and peace in Cameroon, because it also has economic effects. Prices have skyrocketed. A lot of the agricultural commodities come from that region. And, when there's conflict, then that slows things down. It makes the prices go up. Things spoil, people lose money, people lose jobs. It is impactful, it is impactful. So, but the biggest issue is really not the economy. It's those children that lost their lives a couple months ago, which is just, terrifying.
Certainly,
So,
there are some very dysfunctional people uh, all around the world. And when you see incidents like this take place, it's very heartbreaking, and especially when the incidence of killing is very senseless and unwarranted. Uh, there are a lot of our people, African people, need to be psychologically
right,
evaluated. That's some of the things that we lack in the healthcare industry, the business of healthcare in the
yes,
African community, is that we have a lot of people who have not been that need to be psychologically evaluated, and many of them need to be medicated. And so, and then we also have incidents of tribalism, as well as uh, economic disenfranchisement, which stimulates crime sometime. And then on top of that, we have religious ideologies that we sometimes hold very dear, which sometimes does not have a place in our day and time, being that sometimes religion itself becomes outdated and basically is a method to use to control the masses of people and certain types of thinking. So this is something that I feel that the African diaspora could be very beneficial. Brothers and sisters in the African diaspora, bridging the gap with our brothers and sisters on the continent to help get rid of some of this divide that the imperialist, colonial, imperial institutions have developed, that we've developed ourselves off of. And like you say, when you look at the pinnacle of what we hold dear to ourselves, most of the time is Western ideology, and that Western ideology is certainly not helping us to be a better people, but sometimes can be a hindrance. So yeah, thank you, sister, for sharing the information with you, and I'll yield the stage and give it back to Brother Amani. Thank you, Brother Amani. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, I think we Africans actually, I don't know what is wrong with us. Sometimes we are fighting with tribes and tribes, and now we are fighting, excuse me, the war between the French colonized and the British colonized. Come on now, Africans. Are you that serious? Like really, this is the game? Is this something we should be doing now? You know, like really, should be actually a shame, you know, to be able to fight for something like that. We should fight something for something different, not fighting that who colonized who. But again, that also shows the disease and that these Europeans have left in African mind. It is just like sinking in our brain that even though Brother Eugene, you say that we need to evaluate our people, Brother Eugene said that we need to evaluate our people. I think it's a disease of actual colonization. That was the intention of colonizing us, so that we will fight each other until when maybe the European come back to recolonize us again. You can see that Ethiopia and Eritrea, the war was really based on who colonized who. It's the same thing too in many places in Africa, where people based on who colonized who, we are fighting each other. Yes, so I think that's true. That is sigma is like seeking is something really disgusting when we fighting each other, brothers and sisters from one tribe, fight just because one is colonized by France, another one is colonized by British or Portuguese and the Spanish, whoever it is, or Italian. Now back to our special guest. What will you tell someone who is planning to come to move in Africa in terms of education? What is the advice you would tell them concerning the children, how the children are gonna study, or where they're gonna get education? What is your advice? Because we know definitely that in this year and next year and maybe a few years to come, a lot of African America, especially, and not on African America, by the way, even people from South America, they will be moving to many places in Africa. So what is your takeout? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to not only focus on the academics, but also focus on producing a well-rounded child with a love and a commitment and a duty to honor the ancestors that came before them and to honor those who will come after them, their descendants, and to always be taking positive actions to build and develop Africa. So in whatever school they can achieve that, tant mieux. If that's something that they have to have reinforced in the home, tant mieux. But the idea is not to, extract just the knowledge. It's also to apply the wisdom and the understanding of how we can in a unified way, make Africa emerge in our lifetime.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you
That
so
would be
much.
my.
Yes, I think I see someone raise hand. I give you microphone. Go ahead, Mr. Red.
Hello, my name is Rick, friend of Eugene's, and I'm enjoying the conversation here. I've been sitting back listening, and I've distilled a few things out of the conversation. And I'm thinking to myself that as a people, even on a global scale, the thing that we keep focusing on is reacting to what has been done to us, and instead of being proactive toward it. The discussion is great,
Mhm.
solutions sound beautiful, but I'm thinking it may be a self-colonization, of colonizing ourselves,
Yeah.
and the things that they did to us, we should be able to do to ourselves. We should be able to colonize our people. We should be able to educate our children with the sense of heritage that the guest speaks of, and the thing I'm trying to reach, I guess, is to say that the minds of the children are where we're going to build the African future and tear down the colonization, and to colonize ourselves, to colonize the adults around us. What the colonization is the actual unification of resources and redirecting them to a primary, from a secondary to a primary person. Our resources right now are being consumed by outsiders. Our children are our resource. They're being consumed by outsiders. Our monetary gains, our educational systems, they're being consumed by outsiders. We're learning more about them than we are about ourselves. Our children
Mhm.
can't grow up with any sense of dignity or, racial pride, or even unless they know a history. They have a history to attach themselves to. And the history that we keep giving them is our dysfunctionality, how dysfunctional we are because of the predator that we have in our midst, and that's basically what's going on. We have to, I guess, self-colonize. We have to find ways to unify our resources for us, and not just the financial, but and the political, but the children, the minds of our people have to be recolonized. We have to start directing them toward our unification, and I know that's not an easy task to take up because there's so many different things we have to implant. But religion has been used as a tool to divide every race on the planet, basically. And it was seen as Constantine as a tool to capture the mind and not to have weapons to control the people, but to control them mentally. This was a key part of our colonization, and we have to find a way to reach the minds of these people and see to it that they understand that they're one body fighting amongst itself, And like I say, that I just wanted to throw that in there, that I feel my greatest thought to fight this colonization is to colonize ourselves by taking our children's minds back from them, because the children in Africa, the children in America are the same children. They're the same minds.
Mhm.
They want the same things. And if they
Mhm.
in America see all these things that they can't aspire to, that they can't have here in America, it leads to frustration. At least in Africa, I believe that they have the opportunity to see themselves becoming doctors and lawyers and great politicians, because there are black people everywhere doing what it is that they do. But the divisiveness comes in the mental attitude that we have toward each other. So that needs to be corrected. And I think self-colonization, we reach out and pull our resources together. The people, I think W.D. Boyce said that there'd be a 10% that would be able to start the flow, and that could help in the direction we're all reaching for, because we have to be reactive. We discuss and we discuss and we discuss, and I think the first positive step could be to start looking at the crop ahead of us and implanting in the minds of these children, not just to become doctors and lawyers, but to become a functional part of our colonization of the reactualization of ourselves, and make that aware, not just to become a doctor, but become a doctor for our people, do these things for ourselves rather than try to impress other communities. The Japanese, for example, they could care less. They've never been colonized. I understand this, but They could care less about what other races think of them, and they could care less about how we perform in front of other people. They perform in front of other people, and I think that one of our major drawbacks is we're trying to compare ourselves to someone who is not really worthy of comparing. The comparison, our civilization is much greater than theirs. It goes back with a greater, richer history, and most of the sciences and knowledge on the planet come from our roots and from our ancestry, but they don't teach us that. They teach things like the first Kamala Harris is the first person of you know political power, the first black woman to do that in America. But continent of Africa, women have been running things for centuries. There's nothing new. But with a lack of knowledge of our history, we accept that Western society is better than ours. So we have to start knocking down that image of them being the greatest and hold up a candle of our own. I just wanted to throw that out there because you guys are way ahead of me on this thing. I just wanted to throw my little 2 cents out there and have that said. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you so much, Mr. Rick, for coming. I don't know if you've been on our panel discussion already or it's the first time, but if you have, thank you for coming back. If you haven't, thank you for coming first time, and I hope we're going to see you again on Saturday. Every Saturday, we have panel discussion where we discuss different topics with different people. Now, continue on. So thank you for our brother Rick and our special guest about the idea what she would suggest for someone who is coming, who is planning or thinking of moving to Africa. Now, do you own land in Cameroon?
We do have land in Cameroon, yes.
Yes, so because when I was growing up, our grandparents told us that unless you have you have built a house, you can't get married. That's how they were teasing us. Another way to mean like in order for you to be a man, you must build something. You must be able to show that you can take care of your family. And so is your kids, are they having some kind of practical hands-on things like growing food or whatever it is in Cameroon?
Well, I mean, my kids have chores. They do help their father out at construction sites from time to time. But we definitely try to get them involved and just in the running of the household. I always tell them everybody has a job or jobs. Many hands make for light work. So, we can all contribute and be responsible. We can also rest when, it's somebody else's turn. So that's an integral part of the way that we bring them up, because we don't want them to think that, food just mysteriously appears on the table, or, the resources or some of the things that they enjoy, that it comes from nowhere. It comes from, effort and forethought and initiative and work on our part. So that's the kind of, work ethic that we liked.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think there is one point you made very, very important about the community, like the community connection. You can really have PhD, especially I see that in Western countries where you can have very good education. You are very, very intelligent when it comes to school materials or academic, But if you don't have the ground, the basic education, I don't know how even you call that, the principles that you get from your mother and your father, that you get from your community, what to respect, what to not respect, when to talk, when to not talk, what is necessary for you to make decision for yourself, how to treat other people, how to be able to communicate and to what is important for you, all those things are now going down, especially in Western way of life. I don't know. I don't want to call that culture because it's honestly not really culture. It's more about like human being in general. That's how we are created. uh, One time I was telling someone that someone say Africans husband beat their wives. That's how someone told me, and they were almost like very very shocked. Everyone at school they were like, what, really? Like, are you really serious? Like, you guys husbands go ahead and beat your wives, which is definitely not true, by the way. Is some areas or some
Right.
people they do that, but it's not something that we have as regulation. Uh, and then I told them, yeah, they do. Some people do. And then I asked them, like, why are you not shocked when someone go on the street and open fire and shoot 10 or 20 people in America?
Mhm.
Oh, and you are
Right.
shooting people you have never seen before, and you will possibly never see them again. It's not someone you know of who is maybe being disturbing you, or you have some issue going on, then you wanna kill them. But you go there and you open fire on people that you don't know. You have no argument. You have no business with them at all. I told them this is only founded in your countries. We don't do that. Okay, in Africa, if someone kill you, it must be a issue in behind. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a pencil or pen that they want to steal from you, but then they're gonna kill you and take that one. Or it can be some land issues or some family things, whatever it is. But it has to be something for them, or someone pay them to kill you. But African will not just come to you and just shoot you or stab you unless there is something like, even you say in school they come and kill those kids. It must be some political reasons or some conflict, whatever it is, but it must be something there. It's not like they will just from nowhere and kill people. So I think the mindset of that idea of almost like being animal, like come and kill people that you don't really have any problem with, or you don't have any reason for you to do that. You just see someone and you just don't like them, you don't want to kill them. And the culture around Western is totally not the culture I would suggest for my kids to grow up in. I would definitely not do that. I know this Western education is being commercialized. That is important compared to our education. But when it comes to the morals, I think like where I have been in almost everywhere in the US, the moral standards is low compared to the African moral standards. Now, I don't know if anyone has a last question because our time is running. I know our special guest, she's in Cameroon, is getting late there. Thank you for holding on with us, by the way. Yeah, so is anyone have a question?
Yeah, we have Brother Adu. Brother Adu, are you there this evening with us?
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry I joined a bit late. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you, sir.
Hello.
And hello, everybody. And half the time, actually, the conversation was distorted, maybe probably due to the internet connection. I just wanted to not miss this opportunity where we have Africans either in Africa or in the diaspora to rub minds on the issue of loving one another.
Yes.
We will see that those of us who have worked with Africans in diaspora, we have so many diaspora organizations, but they are not cooperating. And we'll see that that's what is responsible for most strife in the African continent. And if we do not make a conscious effort to be appealing to each other in forums like this, I think we are going to be working at cross purposes. At every stage, we see there is need for unity, there's need for love. If the black man has loved his neighbor, the white man would not have been very successful with slavery. We cooperated actively with them, And that was why they were so successful. Now they even gave us their type of education, which will not help us. We are still all in the same stereotype. We are Anglophone, Lusophone, all sorts of phones. I think we should not miss the opportunity of each meeting to appeal to one another that in whatever we do, let us have a soft heart towards the African. The black man is detested by all the other races all over the world. So why should we, between ourselves, not like ourselves?
Right.
I think this is a crucial point, and this runs into everything we do. The leadership in Africa, the leadership does not love the followership. And that is why we are having problems. Please, any forum where we have ourselves, let us make it a point of duty to stress this. I think that's what I want to say, and to thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Yes, Brother Imani, I really concur with what the brother just said. You know, we have a common destiny. You know,
Yes.
the strife and the struggle that we are facing and have been facing in America for so long is really parallel to the strife and the struggle of Africans on the continent. We will not be able to obtain anything worthwhile, you know, if we don't see each other as one, if we don't see our brothers' problems and troubles as our own. And so I just really want to take my hat off to that brother, because that is going to be the foundation of any political gain, economic gain, intellectual gain, is going to be able to recognize, you know, each other and show each other love, and really just come together, you know, without outside observations. I say it all the time. We have work that we need to do internally behind closed doors, you know, where we can
Yes.
get rid of some of those little mental roadblocks that we have, and then deconstruct some of the other things that no longer serve a purpose for us. But the sooner we do that, then the sooner we can get on to the business of, you know, reconstructing our inner civilization and moving forward, you know, and just really changing the dynamic of how we've been moving on this planet, and how we move forward in the 21st century, you know, with pride and restored dignity. We can only do that if we're working together.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Yeah, thank you. We appreciate for that. Yes, the unity is what? The unity is strength, and
Strength.
the division is
Yeah.
weakness. Is common. There's one common proverbs they say in here in Ethiopia, that if you unite or you put together spider webs, they can tie up a lion. So that's how strong it can be a unit. You know, the spider webs is something you can run through, and you know, but if you put them together more and more and more, eventually you're gonna be able to tie up a lion. So yeah, unity is something. Unity is something that we are actually lucky of as Africans in general. We literally need to figure out how we can come together and drop this idea of who colonized who, or cornered by some francophone or ex-phones, or like now is a China phone, maybe it's coming up, maybe very soon. We need to drop this idea of tribes and ethnic groups. We need to come together away from these religions, institutions, or issues or beliefs. I'm not saying that we need to not believe in to believe in nothing, but I'm saying that we need to figure out how we can work with brother who are Muslim, with brother who are Orthodox or Pentecostal, born again Christian, brothers who are Catholics and brother who are Jehovah Witness. Because at the end of the day, and those who don't believe in God or who does not believe in any of those things, or who believe in traditional whatever it is. So we Africans, we need to actually look beyond that because apparently our enemies who want to destroy us, they don't really care about those things we are fighting for. We need to get away with oh, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Cameroon, I'm from Ghana, I'm from South Africa, I'm from Congo. Our country is the best country in Africa. All those we never be colonized. We are the giants of Africa. Our country has the best and the biggest country. Is the one has most of natural resources. And our country is the country of peace. All those kind of things. Those haven't produced anything that we can show to our children or we can see. It's just creating more division among our people. So I think we really need to sit down and if we maybe need to actually get some kind of, I don't know if we need maybe training as Africans to actually see how we can come together and then drop all those issues we have. And that being said, this is going to be the conclusion of our panel discussion. I really appreciate for our special guest who actually stay up for all this time from Cameroon. And I appreciate for everyone, even Stefan, who is actually in Nairobi, Kenya, who stay up for all this time. It's very, very late around here. I think it's like around this
3:30 a.m.
Yes, so yeah, that's the time I'm actually having here in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa as well. So as you can see, we took this measure we take this very, very serious because our people need to discuss. And I'm actually looking forward to open another panel discussion that will be in daytime, in African time, and another panel discussion that is gonna be in French. So my French is really not that good, but I am gonna have to do that because yes, I'm gonna have to do that because we don't want to left out those who are French speaker. Maybe in the future Swahili too, who knows? But for now, I think we need to bring in French speaker who and then even Portuguese and Spanish, especially Spanish. We have very, very huge diaspora who are Spanish speak. So that one is something we are looking to see how we're gonna bring in people who are Spanish speaker and French speaker as well. Again, thank you so much, each one of you. And unless there's someone who has something, the last thing to say, we're thinking of closing or ending this panel discussion on this this topic or this time.
Brother Imani, how are you in Ethiopia?
I'm doing good. Everything's fine here. I'm in hands of my family.
Please keep safe. And I want to say that there is a diaspora forum where they are teaching Swahili. I don't know whether you are aware.
Where you mean in Ethiopia?